They laughed at her while she knelt in the dust, clutching a broken nutcracker to her chest. Unaware that the man they mocked as wood and worthlessness would, before the next full moon, return as the Alpha King who would make the entire pack bow. Now listen carefully, because this love story begins with shame, ends with power, and hides a lesson no one saw coming. Before we continue, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications, so you don't miss what happens next. In the cold mountain pack of Arawan, love was measured by strength, claws, and bloodline. Anything weak was crushed. Anything different was mocked. And she was already considered nothing. Her name was Alira, an orphan raised on leftovers, soft-hearted in a land that rewarded cruelty. She had no wolf of her own, no rank, no protector. Just quiet hands, tired eyes, and a heart that refused to harden no matter how often it was stepped on. So when she chose to love a nutcracker, not a warrior, not a prince, not even a man, the laughter became unbearable. The nutcracker appeared one winter festival night, carved from dark wood, dressed in faded royal colors, its jaw cracked and one eye dulled. It was meant to be a toy. A joke. A thing children tossed aside once it broke. But Alira picked it up. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was abandoned. From that day, she carried it everywhere. She cleaned it, wrapped it in cloth, sat with it under moonlight when the others feasted in the great hall. In her mind, the nutcracker was not wood. It was company. It was comfort. It was the only presence that never judged her silence. The pack noticed. Whispers followed her steps. Mockery clung to her shadow. They called her mad, broken, desperate. Each laugh cut deep, but Alira endured. Because loving something unwanted felt familiar. It felt honest. Still, something was wrong. Some nights, when the wind howled too perfectly, the nutcracker felt warm in her hands. Too warm. Sometimes, when danger crept near the borders, Alira swore the wooden jaw tightened, as if listening. And on the night the Alpha fell sick, she felt it. A pulse. A heartbeat. She told no one. Because deep down, Alira feared the truth even more than their laughter. If this story is already pulling at your heart, like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because what happens next will change everything you think you know about fate and power. As the Alpha's strength faded, the pack grew restless. Power-hungry wolves circled like vultures. Trials were whispered. Bloodshed loomed. And Alira, small, invisible Alira, was suddenly in danger. Because when power shifts, the weak are always the first to be crushed. One night, as mockery turned into cruelty, they dragged her into the open square. They wanted entertainment. They wanted to break her final illusion. They threw the nutcracker at her feet. Laughter roared. They demanded she choose reality over fantasy. Strength over foolish love. Alira knelt. Hands shaking. Heart breaking. She picked up the cracked nutcracker, and hugged it. Not in defiance. Not in pride. But in pure, trembling love. And that was when the ground trembled. Not loudly. Not yet. But enough. Because far beyond the mountains, under a blood-stained moon, ancient magic stirred. Magic tied to forgotten kings. Magic awakened only by loyalty given without condition. And as Alira pressed her forehead against the wooden crown, unaware of the fate she was unlocking, the Alpha mark burned to life. On someone the entire pack believed was nothing more than carved wood. The nutcracker cracked open in her arms. Not into splinters, but into flesh, power, and a destiny that made the mountains bow. And Alira fainted before she could see what she had awakened. Before we go deeper, Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because once this transformation begins, nothing will ever be the same again. Elira woke on frozen ground with ash in her mouth and fear pounding in her chest. The square was silent now. Too silent. The laughter that once bruised her ears had vanished, replaced by the uneasy stillness of prey sensing a predator nearby. The Nutcracker was no longer in her arms. In its place lay footprints, large, barefoot, pressed deep into stone as if the earth itself had softened for whoever stepped there. The air carried a strange scent, old and powerful, like rain hitting iron. The pack elders felt it immediately. The warriors did too. Something ancient had crossed their borders without permission. Something that did not need to ask. Elira tried to stand, but her knees failed her. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up, trembling with a mix of fear and a warmth she had never known. Somewhere deep inside her chest, a thread pulled tight, as if her soul had been tied to another without her consent. She did not know it yet, but that thread was a bond older than the pack itself. As night fell, chaos crept in quietly. The Alpha's sickness worsened. Fires refused to stay lit. Wolves shifted uncontrollably under the moon, howling in confusion and pain. The balance that had held Arawan together for generations was breaking. And Elira was blamed. They called her curse-maid. They whispered that her foolish love had invited ruin. She was chased from the warmth of the halls and left at the edge of the forest with nothing but torn clothes and shaking breath. Yet even there, alone, scared, abandoned. She was not truly alone. The forest watched her. The trees leaned closer. The wind softened around her skin. Predators hid instead of hunting. Something unseen was guarding what belonged to it. If you feel this tension building, like and subscribe now, and turn on notifications, because the reveal coming next will leave you breathless. Elira wandered until her feet bled, driven by a pull she could not explain. Each step felt guided, as though the land itself remembered her. She collapsed beside an ancient stone ruin buried in vines, the kind elders warned pups never to approach. That was when she felt it again. The warmth. Stronger now. Familiar. Safe. From the shadows stepped a man, tall, broad, crowned with power that bent the air around him. His presence pressed down on the forest like a command. Marks glowed faintly along his skin, symbols no living wolf had seen carved outside legend. He was not gentle. But when his eyes fell on Elira, something softened. Not weakness, recognition. Micro-reaction. Her heart answered before her mind could scream. Memories flooded her then. The nights the Nutcracker felt warm. The pulse she felt during the Alpha's illness. The way it seemed to listen, to protect. The truth struck her breathless. The Nutcracker had never been a toy. It had been a prison. An Alpha King sealed away generations ago, betrayed, bound in wood and silence, waiting for one thing alone. Love given freely, without fear, without desire for power. And Elira. She had loved him when he was nothing. But fate is never kind without cost. Because back at Arawan, the pack elders had made a decision born of fear. They had chosen a new Alpha, one hungry, cruel, and threatened by rumors of a returned king. And as the false Alpha prepared for blood, ancient laws began to awaken. Laws that demanded loyalty. Laws that punished betrayal. Laws that would test Elira's heart more cruelly than mockery ever did. As thunder rolled across the mountains and the mark of the Alpha King burned brighter under the moon, Elira realized one terrifying truth. Loving him once had awakened his power. But choosing him now would make her the target of an entire pack. And the real war was only beginning. The pack did not come to talk. They came with chains, fire, and a verdict already decided. And Elira was standing in the middle of it all, marked by a king she never asked to awaken. Before the story pulls you deeper, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because what unfolds next will change Alira forever. The night thickened with danger. From the forest's edge, Alira felt it before she saw it, the pack's rage moving as one body, synchronized by fear and hunger for control. Torches flickered like angry eyes. Iron chains dragged across stone. This was not justice. This was panic disguised as authority. Alira's bond burned hotter with every step they took closer. It was no longer just a thread. It was a living force, tightening around her soul, anchoring her to something vast and unforgiving. Each beat of her heart echoed with power not her own. Strength brushed her skin like a storm held back by will alone. She realized then that loving the Alpha King had not only awakened him. It had changed her. The elders called this imbalance a threat. They claimed the old laws were dangerous, that ancient kings brought ruin. But beneath their fear lived something uglier, envy. Because power that could not be controlled terrified those who had ruled through tradition and cruelty. Alira stood trembling, not from cold, but from the weight of choice pressing down on her chest. Running would mean survival. Staying would mean sacrifice. The forest waited. So did the king. When the first chain struck the ground beside her, the bond flared. The air cracked. Leaves lifted. Stones hummed with restrained force. Alira dropped to her knees, overwhelmed, not by pain, but by a vision flooding her mind. She saw him as he once was. A ruler forged by duty. Not pride. A king who protected the weak and punished the corrupt. A king betrayed by those closest to him and sealed away because mercy threatened greed. And in that moment, Alira understood the moral carved into fate itself. Power without compassion rots. But love without courage dies quietly. If this story is tightening your chest right now, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because what Alira chooses next will shock you. The false alpha stepped forward, wearing stolen authority like borrowed skin. His claim rested on fear, not blood. On intimidation, not loyalty. The pack watched, torn between old habits and the pull of something truer stirring beneath their feet. Alira felt the king reach for her through the bond, not commanding, not forcing. Waiting. Human flaw pressed in. She was afraid. Afraid of becoming visible. Afraid of being hated. Afraid that love would demand more than she could give. But fear had already taken enough from her life. When she rose, the ground answered. Not violently. Not yet. But with certainty. The mark beneath her skin glowed brighter, spreading warmth through her veins. Her spine straightened. Her shaking eased. For the first time, the pack did not see an orphan, they saw a presence they could not ignore. Micro-reaction. The chains fell from numb hands. Yet fate demanded payment. Because the old laws did not awaken kings without blood. From the shadows, traitors struck, wolves loyal to the false alpha, desperate to end the threat before it fully rose. Chaos erupted. Fire scattered. The forest screamed. And Alira, still human, still fragile, stood between power and destruction. The king moved then. Not fully revealed. Not yet unleashed. But enough. The earth split. The moon dimmed. And every wolf felt it, the undeniable return of a ruler who did not need permission to reign. As bodies fell and ancient symbols ignited across the ruins, Alira realized the final truth of her choice. She was no longer just the girl who loved a nutcracker. She was the anchor holding the Alpha King's power in check. And if she broke, the world would burn. The Alpha King could destroy them all in one breath. But the old laws demanded something crueler. A sacrifice made willingly by the one who loved him first. Before we go any deeper, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because this chapter changes the direction of everything. The night did not end after the earth split. It only held its breath. Alira stood at the center of the ruin, heart pounding, senses stretched thin as if her body no longer belonged fully to her. Power surged around her like a living storm, yet none of it answered to rage. It answered to restraint. To control. To her. That was when the old law revealed itself. Not through words. But through pain. The bond tightened without warning, searing through her chest, stealing the air from her lungs. Alira collapsed, fingers digging into soil that pulsed with ancient markings. Visions crashed into her mind, crowns forged in blood, queens who burned to keep kings from turning into monsters, lovers who chose suffering so the world could remain standing. She understood then what the elders had never dared to teach. An alpha king was never ruled by strength alone. He was bound by the one who loved him enough to suffer. The forest responded to her agony. Trees bent low. Wolves dropped to their knees. Even the false alpha felt it, his stolen authority cracking under a force that did not recognize lies. Fear spread through the pack. Not fear of the king. Fear of the girl holding him back. Because Alira's pain was not weakness. It was proof of command. If your heart is racing right now, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because the next choice Alira makes will break someone forever. The Alpha King did not roar. He did not strike. He resisted. That alone shocked the world. His power surged, begging for release, yet he held it in, knowing exactly what it would cost her if he failed. The bond between them burned brighter, threading their fates together in a way that could never be undone. And Alira felt everything. His rage at betrayal. His grief from centuries of isolation. His fear, not of death, but of losing the one soul who saw him when he was nothing. Human flaw clawed at her resolve. She wanted to let go. To surrender. To let the power consume everything and finally be free of pain. But freedom bought with destruction was not love. The elders finally understood their mistake. They had mocked compassion. They had ridiculed loyalty. They had laughed at a girl who chose kindness over status. And now that same kindness stood between them and extinction. Alira rose slowly, pain trembling through her limbs, eyes glowing not with dominance, but with clarity. The old law demanded balance. Not bloodshed. Not revenge. But a willing binding. The false alpha made one last desperate move. Power-hungry, cornered, terrified of being erased by history, he reached for forbidden magic, an act that sealed his fate before it was completed. The land rejected him violently. The pack recoiled. Because true power could never be stolen. It was given. As the moon reached its peak, the Alpha King stepped fully into the open at last. Not as a monster. Not as a tyrant. But as something far more dangerous. A ruler who remembered mercy. And beside him stood Alira, shaking, bleeding, unbroken. Micro-reaction. The pack bowed. Not to the king first. But to her. As ancient symbols carved themselves into the stone, sealing the new reign, Alira felt the final truth settle into her bones. She was not just the one who awakened the Alpha King. She was the cost of his crown. And if the bond ever shattered, the king would lose himself. And the world would pay the price. The crown was finally ready to be placed. But crowns forged by ancient laws always demand one final test. And this one was designed to expose who truly deserved to rule. Before we go further, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because the coronation you're about to witness will not go the way anyone expects. Body, Chapter 5. Dawn crept slowly over Arawan, washing the broken ruins in pale gold. What should have been a moment of relief felt instead like the calm before a storm. The Alpha King stood at the center of the stone circle, power restrained but restless, ancient symbols hovering faintly in the air like breathing things. And Alira stood beside him. She felt lighter, and heavier, all at once. The bond had settled into something steady now, no longer burning, but humming beneath her skin like a warning that would never truly fade. Every breath the king took echoed faintly in her chest. Every shift of his power tugged at her pulse. This was no longer just connection. It was shared fate. The pack gathered in silence. Wolves who once mocked her now refused to meet her eyes. Warriors who had laughed at her devotion stood stiff with unease. Respect had not come gently, it had arrived sharpened by fear and awe. Because everyone felt it. The land itself had accepted him. But acceptance by the land did not mean acceptance by the law. The elders stepped forward, faces grim. The final rite remained, the trial of dominion. An ancient coronation test abandoned for centuries because it was considered too cruel, too revealing. A test meant to strip away illusion and expose the truth beneath power. No alpha king could refuse it. And neither could the one bound to him. Alira's stomach tightened as the circle activated. The ground shifted, stone rearranging into a narrow path leading into darkness. The air grew heavy with judgment. This was not a trial of strength. It was a trial of intent. They laughed at her while she knelt in the dust, clutching a broken nutcracker to her chest. Unaware that the man they mocked as wood and worthlessness would, before the next full moon, return as the alpha king who would make the entire pack bow. Now listen carefully, because this love story begins with shame, ends with power, and hides a lesson no one saw coming. Before we continue, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications, so you don't miss what happens next. In the cold mountain pack of Arawan, love was measured by strength, claws, and bloodline. Anything weak was crushed. Anything different was mocked. And she was already considered nothing. Her name was Alira, an orphan raised on leftovers, soft-hearted in a land that rewarded cruelty. She had no wolf of her own, no rank, no protector. Just quiet hands, tired eyes, and a heart that refused to harden no matter how often it was stepped on. So when she chose to love a nutcracker, not a warrior, not a prince, not even a man, the laughter became unbearable. The nutcracker appeared one winter festival night, carved from dark wood, dressed in faded royal colors, its jaw cracked and one eye dulled. It was meant to be a toy. A joke. A thing children tossed aside once it broke. But Alira picked it up. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was abandoned. From that day, she carried it everywhere. She cleaned it. Wrapped it in cloth. Sat with it under moonlight when the others feasted in the great hall. In her mind, the nutcracker was not wood. It was company. It was comfort. It was the only presence that never judged her silence. The pack noticed. Whispers followed her steps. Mockery clung to her shadow. They called her mad. Broken. Desperate. Each laugh cut deep, but Alira endured. Because loving something unwanted felt familiar. It felt honest. Still, something was wrong. Some nights, when the wind howled too perfectly, the nutcracker felt warm in. A ruler consumed by loss. Micro-reaction. The warning was clear. Love was the leash. And also the risk. As the circle began to collapse and the crown rose slowly into the air, Alira realized the cruelest truth of all. The coronation would succeed. But her life would never truly belong to her again. Because to save the world, she would have to give up something she had never even lived long enough to claim. The crown descended. The world held its breath. And Alira made the one choice that turned love into legend. Before the final truth unfolds, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because this ending carries the lesson this story was born to teach. Body, final chapter. The crown hovered above the Alpha King, forged of moonlight, stone, and ancient will. It pulsed with restrained power, waiting for the final seal. Around the circle, the pack stood frozen, no mockery left, no pride remaining, only reverence and fear intertwined. Alira felt the weight of the moment press into her bones. This was it. The final cost the old law demanded was no longer hidden. The trial had not asked for blood. It had asked for something far rarer. Choice. The bond tightened gently now, no longer burning, but aching with meaning. The Alpha King's power bowed inward, restrained by love rather than force. He could rule without her, but he would not remain whole. And Alira could leave. But the world would not survive what followed. For the first time, she was not being mocked for loving something broken. She was being tested for loving something powerful. The elders knelt first. Not out of tradition, but understanding. They finally saw the truth their pride had blinded them to: leadership was not dominance. It was sacrifice made invisible. It was restraint chosen again and again when destruction felt easier. Alira stepped forward. Her legs shook. Her heart thundered. Fear still lived in her, but it no longer ruled her. She placed her hand over her chest, right where the bond rested. And she accepted. The crown descended. Not onto the Alpha King alone, but between them. Ancient symbols flared, sealing not just a reign, but a balance. The ground steadied. The forest exhaled. The sky cleared as if the world itself had been holding its breath for centuries. The Alpha King rose fully crowned, not as a conqueror, but as a guardian. And Alira stood beside him, not as a queen of status, but as something far more dangerous to tyranny. An anchor. If this story touched you even a little, like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because stories like this remind us who we are when the world is watching, and when it isn't. The pack bowed in unison. Not because they feared his power, but because they recognized hers. The same girl they once laughed at. The one who loved without witnesses. The one who chose kindness when cruelty was easier. She had not risen by force. She had risen by staying. Time passed. Under the Alpha King's rule, the pack changed. Strength was no longer measured only by claws, but by loyalty. The weak were protected. The forgotten were seen. And stories began to spread, of a ruler who listened, and a woman who kept the crown from turning into a weapon. Alira never lost her softness. That was the point. The world mocked her because it believed power only lived in dominance. But this story teaches something deeper. Love given without condition can awaken greatness. Kindness is not weakness, it is restraint. And those who laugh at compassion often fear it most. Alira did not change because power found her. Power changed because love did. Long after the laughter faded, after the crowns and trials became legend, one truth remained carved into history. The Alpha King ruled because he was strong. But the world survived. Because someone loved him when he was nothing. The end. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe, explore our older videos, and let us know the country you're watching from.